Teen shot while trespassing. The Pokémon series, just like any other open world game, has its quirks about it. Just little video game things that get overlooked and passed off as being okay because they're happening in a virtual world. One of these quirks is being able to walk into any house or anywhere you really wish with no repercussions. We've seen in countless RPGs such as The Legend of Zelda and many more. Sadly, here in the real world there are other rules you must abide by, rules put in place for your and everyone else's safety. If you don't follow these rules, you can most definitely face serious consequences. It was late one night in Chiquimula, a mid-sized city in Guatemala, that Gerson Lopez de Leon, who was 18, and his cousin Daniel Moises Piquin, who was 17, were out hunting virtual monsters. Eventually on their adventures they came across one that was a bit harder to reach. The problem here was that it was on privately owned property. Following the logic found in these video games, Gerson and his cousin proceed onto the property with the hopes of catching the Pokémon. However, as they were searching, bullets began to rain down on the pair. The bullets would strike both teens, killing Gerson and seriously injuring his cousin Danielle. Police claim that there were nearly 20 empty shells found at the scene and believe the motive for it may have been mobile phone robbery. Other claims say that one of the boys were wanted by those who shot at them and was located via GPS on his phone, but still it's unclear. They had a search out for an agricultural van that was seen fleeing the scene. However, it was never found, and as of now, no one has been held accountable. Heart Attack Lapras. When Pokémon Go was first released to the public in July of 2016, many were excited to catch the creatures they'd grown up with. However, some of those fan favorites wouldn't be available until a later date. One of these would be Lapras, a true fan favorite. One 67-year-old man in Singapore was lucky enough to nab one while out for lunch with his family in Marina Bay Sands Resort in Singapore. According to reports, he was a very skilled player boasting over 200 unique Pokémon and standing tall at level 28. Investigation of his phone showed that he captured a Grand Ball and Lapras moments before suffering cardiac arrest. His wife, 66, told the publication that she'd gotten a call from the hospital after 6 p.m. and they instructed her to come see him one last time. She'd suspected cardiac arrest after he had problems with it in the past, including heart disease. While the man did not make it to the hospital, he passed away soon after. Traffic accident. One big update that came to the game was the inclusion of Pokémon eggs. These, much like the game, would hatch over time, but the players could speed up the process by running or biking through areas of the game. As it turns out, Pokémon Go implemented similar rules. Eggs captured in the app would hatch sooner if the player walked more or rode a bike around. This feature was quickly exploited when some found out that having the app open while driving your car around could greatly speed up the process. Sadly, some players felt the need to watch their phone while doing so. A 21-year-old man who was driving a delivery van in Aarhus, a small city in Denmark, was involved in a traffic accident back in July of 2016. Police claim the app was still running when they retrieved the phone from his car, stating, "When we arrived at the scene of the accident, we found his phone unlocked with the Pokémon app running." They then added, "Normally a phone will lock itself if not in use, but we found his phone unlocked with the app running." A handful of other cases similar to this one would come out in later months. Some people had been known to drive or even operate heavy machinery while focusing on the game rather than the task at hand. This would play a large part in the warning that everyone sees when starting up the game nowadays, informing you to be aware of your surroundings. Beaten to death. In the Pokémon games, you can sometimes take a bad loss. While in the virtual world, you can simply step away from it for a while or name your rival something silly. Sadly, in the real world, some players may not take a loss so lightly. It was October of 2016 when 20-year-old Carl Gregory was beaten to death in the parking lot of a shopping center. The heinous act took place moments after he got into a heated argument with another Pokémon Go player. According to his girlfriend, who was with him at the time, they had just finished battling when the argument took place. The man he battled and the man with him began to beat Carl to the ground. Allegedly, he was left face down in the parking lot, but eventually passed away in his girlfriend's arms soon after the attackers fled. In a Facebook post made by Carl's girlfriend, she says, "F Pokemon. He was killed for nothing." He's just a kid, and a lovely one at that. Is this what life comes to? Carl and his girlfriend were both avid players of the game, even following a Facebook group for players in their area that boasted over 700 followers. Sadly, with a group that large, it seems there will be a few bad apples. There were tributes held for Carl in which his girlfriend stated, "I am missing you. I wish I could hold you again. I love you so much and I want to be with you. And also, you are the love of my life, Carl, and I want to see you one last time. I'm just so angry and sad. I couldn't save you." The two men who committed the crime were arrested on charges of suspicion of murder. Honorable mention: Twitch robbery and cliff diving. Before we get to number 1, there's a few moments I'd like to touch on that are very disturbing. A live streamer by the name of RickyBot was playing Pokemon Go for his viewers one night when a man came from behind him and punched him in the face. Ricky goes to the ground and the video cuts out after we see the robber running off with Ricky's phone. Ricky would update his followers on Twitter saying there were no serious injuries, just swelling for a couple of days. He also stated that he received a small gash on his head from colliding with the pavement. The man who attacked him was never found despite many viewers calling the police. Another honorable mention goes to the two men who managed to fall off a cliff in San Diego's North County while playing the game. Allegedly, one man fell 80 to 90 feet while the other man, who was found unconscious, only fell about 50 feet. They were both found by the fire department after the lifeguards reported seeing one of the men falling from the cliff. While the cliffs are blocked by a fence, they scaled it in hope of catching a Pokemon that was just out of reach. The banks of these cliffs are very unstable, and they lost their footing, causing them to take a tumble. By some miracle, they were both okay. Stabbed in the park. One of the most notable things about Pokemon Go is how they implemented gym battles. A lot of places like museums and churches would act as a gym where players could go and fight for their spot as the new gym leader. Other places like parks would often be littered with Pokestops. Pokestops were an easy way for players to gather some resources on their travels, things like Pokeballs and Poke-Eggs. Seeing as they could be placed just about anywhere, many people would place them in some shady locations. This would result in multiple attacks and robberies similar to what was captured on a Twitch livestream. The clip would of course go viral and acted as a word of warning to those who ventured out at night. Sadly, some wouldn't learn. Back in August of 2016, 26-year-old Romain Noon Sr. was attacked by two men while playing the game late one night in a park in Davenport, Iowa. The park was populated with multiple trainers when a commotion could be heard. Players looked up from their phones only to witness the horrific sight of two men beating and eventually stabbing Romain. One of the many witnesses stated later, "We saw a part of it," going on to add, "He was already on the ground and they were beating and kicking him. It looked like they were trying to kill him." While Romain was taken to Genesis Medical Center in Davenport for treatment, he did eventually pass away from his injuries. Now, given the amount of people who were at the scene and saw it all play out, there were multiple descriptions for the police to work with. The morning following the attack, the police were able to identify the attackers as Darrell Ryan Parks Jr. and William Earl Crawford. They were arrested and both charged with first-degree murder and willful injury. But what do you think? What other crazy things have occurred while playing the insanely popular Pokemon Go app? Let me know in the comments. And be sure to check out my Choose Your Own Adventure horror game on the iOS and Android App Store. Links in the description. Thanks so much, friends, and I'll see you again soon.